welcome everyone. Welcome to the Eastside Freedom Library. Thank you for joining us today. It's a full house, and so we're so glad to have you all here. My name is Sangmani Labut. I am the executive director of the Eastside Freedom Library. If this is your first time in the library here physically at the library, welcome. And so please allow me to tell you a little bit about the Eastside Freedom Library. We are an independent nonprofit organization. We've been around for close to 10 years now. Starting in June, July, we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary, so please keep a lookout for some programming that will be related to that. And our work is around the intersection of African American history, labor history, immigration history, and social movement. And the Eastside Freedom Library's mission is to inspire solidarity, advocate for justice, and work towards equity for all. And so we do this, fulfill a mission in a number of ways, programs like tonight, but also programs that really tells the stories of working class folks, immigrants in the surrounding community here in the east side of St. Paul, but also across the state as well. And so, and story is a central theme to our work at the Eastside Freedom Library, and the telling and gathering of stories through public programming, performances, exhibits. We have exhibits downstairs. After tonight's panel, you all can welcome to look at the exhibits downstairs as well. So programs, tonight's program is called From the Ground Up, the Challenges and Opportunities of Bargaining a First Contract. There's a panel discussion, and a program like today really helps us understand and tell the stories that is very central to the work of the Eastside Freedom Library. And so following tonight's panel discussion, there will be about a 30-minute intermission. It's a mixer here for folks here in person, but for folks who are viewing from virtual, please allow us 30 minutes to kind of switch the space up. So following the panel discussion, we will have our first Music Between the Stacks series featuring our very good friend Emmett Doyle. And the Music Between the Stacks is we're piloting the project, and it really seeks to support and promote local music artists by organizing and curating very intimate concerts here at the library. And so before I pass it along to the panel, if I can offer folks some technical instructions for folks who are viewing through Zoom or Facebook. If you have any questions for our speakers at any time during the today's event, you can type them in on the Zoom's Q&A function, or if you are viewing us through Facebook, put the letter Q in front of your questions on the comment section of Facebook. And so now, I'll pass it along to the Eastside Freedom Library's co-founder, Peter Ratcliffe, who will be the facilitator or the agitator for tonight's conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Sang, and thank you all for joining us. It's such a treat to have an in-person event, and an event obviously about a subject near and dear to our hearts, organizing, and organizing to make change. So in this last year and a half or so, there has been a lot of organizing going on, and we've had panels mostly by Zoom. We've had half-price bookstore workers. We've had art, media, and cultural workers. And we will be hearing in another month from University of California graduate employees. And I think that we're not only learning that young people are the future of the labor movement, although we had a program once where I said, yeah, the young people are the future, and some young person said, hey, we're making it happen now. It isn't just the future. So it's great to have you here, but it also feels like the first contract is like this giant wall with barbed wire on it that you got to crawl over to get into the promised land and then start to make more change about how to make life better. So we're thrilled to have people from a number of campaigns, obviously Starbucks, also Peace Coffee, Trader Joe's, places where a wide variety of people have gone to work. There are no jobs that are inherently bad jobs. We have the capacity to make jobs good jobs by organizing. And so we invited these folks to come and tell us stories tonight about their experiences and how they're making change. So let me ask first if you guys would introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Beth Ryther, and I am the Vice President of Trader Joe's United. Okay, got it. All right. My name is Sarah Beth Ryther, and I am the Vice President of Trader Joe's United. I work at the Minneapolis Trader Joe's, which I absolutely love my coworkers, and we're really excited to be organizing right now with all of these lovely folks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gracie, or Graciela. I use she, they pronouns. I have been at Starbucks since 2017, and I work at the Starbucks at 300 Snelling Avenue South in St. Paul. I'm super excited to be here. Oh, yeah, you got one.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Lechuga, she, they pronouns. I was a former employee of Common Roots Cafe on Lyndale and 26th Street in uptown Minneapolis, Lynn Lake area. And I was in catering sales, but as you'll learn, there were many jobs that everyone did there. But thank you for all coming.
Hello, my name is Sandro Garcia, and I work for Peace Coffee. I've been working for Peace Coffee for almost 10 years, and I'm from Lima, Peru.
Great. So again, welcome everyone, and we're just thrilled that you're here. So my first question is if you would talk a little bit about why you organized, and why don't we start with Sandro down at the far end, if you would, and I think in your case I'm very curious about you worked there 10 years and now you've organized, and was that a new idea or a new opportunity or a new provocation? Why did you guys organize at Peace Coffee?
If everybody knows a little bit about Peace Coffee, we started as a nonprofit for so many years. And maybe around 3-4 years, the previous CFO bought the company. And around that time is when we kind of start feeling some changes. Obviously, you know, if you buy something, you know, you expect something in return. That's obvious, you know. But you expect something kind of gradually. But unfortunately, we kind of see things very rapidly change, you know. And of course, the pandemic comes, you know, and make everything really, really hard for everyone. And that's why we, one day were everybody there, and the next day we're just like only the roastery people. And we kind of feel a little bit left behind. We feel a little bit like it's time for us to change, you know, the dynamic inside the roastery. And that's why a group of friends, we organize, and we contact our local union shop. And that's why we're here, you know, because we are trying to break in the gap, you know. It's a big gap, you know. It's huge, and every effort that we put into, I think it could make a lot of changes for everyone who works inside a roastery.
Thank you, Sandra. Andrea, you want to talk a little bit about what led you at Common Roots to organize?
Yeah, absolutely. I started working at Common Roots in June of 2021. They were just hiring a bunch of people because since the pandemic began, they went from fully staffed to, I think they went at the lowest point to about 5 employees, just to barely keep things running. And so towards summer 2021, they were opening things back up again, and the patio was open, and so they were hiring. I got hired. A lot of other people got hired. But it seemed, as time went on, things just kept changing. Like sometimes things changed from one day to the next as far as operations went. And week to week, we didn't know what the schedules were going to be like. We didn't know how operations were going to be, if we were going to be doing QR codes anymore or not, or what. So after a few months, some of us started noticing that these changes were really stressing us out, like to a point where it was wearing us down and burning us out very quickly, after being hired. And it wasn't conducive to a healthy work environment. A lot of us were working involuntary overtime, unscheduled overtime, and doing more jobs than we were hired for. People that were hired for front of house were working back of house. People that were hired back of house were working catering service. It was kind of madness. And so we started meeting outside of work just to kind of complain to each other about what was going on, eating pizza and drinking beer. And, and it kind of turned into organizing. I ended up contacting Unite Here Local 17 to ask about, like, how do we talk to our owner, because we were a very small business and we didn't have anything against the owner, Danny, and we wanted to work with him. So we're like, we're not sure about unionizing yet, but we'd like to talk to him. So we wrote a letter, kind of outlining the things we'd like to talk about and requested an all-company meeting. And I'd say like 65% of us signed the letter, and we handed it to Danny. And his response 2 days later was to fire myself and one other worker, and tell the rest of the workers that instead of an all-company meeting, he was going to have one-on-one meetings with everybody, which felt pretty hostile, and everyone was pretty scared after 2 people got fired. So I live across the street from Common Roots Cafe, so all of a sudden my apartment became home base for a union effort that just grew overnight because of Danny's actions, and that's what it came to. And I'm sure all of you know Common Roots ended up closing, but he says it wasn't because of us, but a lot of us kind of feel like maybe there was some union busting going on.
Yeah. And are you still living across the street from Common Roots?
Sure am.
Good vibe in the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it every day.
And Gracie, tell us about the Starbucks story.
Yes. So for us specifically at 300 Snelling, we opened in July of 2021, and a handful of us had actually moved from the store at Snelling and Marshall. And we're carrying with us some union busting memories, although we did not have a union campaign at maybe affectionately known as Snarshall. And we had done a divestment campaign over there between 2020 and 2021 as a part of the uprising. And shout out to Ethan right there, who was like, remember how we were union busted for that? What if we actually had a union that would like protect us from that? And so that kind of turned into some informal, very playful closing shift power mapping, like pulling the schedule down and seeing, okay, how many people do we have in the store? Who would be on board? And for me, at least, all of that was pretty hypothetical, pretty fun to imagine, until we saw Buffalo take off in December, and it was like, damn, okay, so other people are thinking the same things. And then partners were fired in Memphis, and we just saw the scale of retaliation. And so Lola, who's also here, and Marshall, who is not here, met with an organizer at Workers United, and I was closing, and that evening I got a text from Lola saying, do you think we can file in, how many days was it? Yeah, in 6 days. And we did. We filed February 11th of 2022, and then won our election in April. So, but as for the reasons, I think the unpredictability of Starbucks overall, since 2020 and even a little bit before, Starbucks has really been pushing skeleton crews. And right now, At our store, we've gone from 6 shift supervisors to 3 since January, and still no one has been hired or promoted. And we're running with 12 people on staff right now. And that is not abnormal and hasn't been for a while. And I think things like that just added up to the point where we knew that we had the control when it came down to it, that they relied on our labor and our decision making, but then we're still withholding, a fair cut. And it's time to have that power back.
Thank you, Gracie. And Sarah, share a little story.
All right, so I started working at Trader Joe's in the summer of 2021. It became obvious really quickly that things were not right. And I'm sure everybody knows that Trader Joe's has this golden reputation. Folks feel for a very long time it was a really good place to work, and over the past 10 years and increasingly with the pandemic, they've chipped away at benefits and they've chipped away at a lot of pay increases that have made it really, really difficult to actually stay in Trader Joe's for a career, which is what folks used to be able to do. And so when I came to Trader Joe's, I was very much under the impression that it was a really awesome place to work. And just immediately started noticing how much stress my coworkers were under. We just all started talking about how many safety issues there were that winter. It was day after day after day of serious safety issues that we very clearly communicated with management about over a long period of time. And it was just situation after situation, leading to us realizing that it was way above management and the policies that management were asked to enact, or the lack of policies, really were problematic on a day-to-day and in fact an hour-to-hour basis for folks who are working in the store. At that point, we started talking. Late in winter, there were whispers of unionization. I think it is amazing, though, because during the pandemic, there was a union drive that was shut down really quickly at the Minneapolis store, and folks from that store had stuck around, and people remembered what that union drive was like. And we actually just had a store in Oakland announced their intent to unionize. One of their lead organizers used to work at the Minneapolis store and worked at the Minneapolis store when that union drive during the pandemic took place. And I just think it really speaks to planting those seeds, to having talk in the water over a long period of time, and that kind of coworkers institutional memory that that leads to things. Even a failed union drive is not a failed union drive. Anyways, so after we started talking, with some members of the audience, having really good conversations, just kind of trying to figure out what unions were about, figuring out where we wanted to go. The store in Hadley, Massachusetts announced their intent to unionize, and we started talking to them and pretty immediately felt like it was the right decision for us. And yeah, we won our union election in August of last year, and we're in bargaining now. So it's been a journey, but we're really excited for what's to come.
Thank you, Sarah. Listening to you, I want to tell this long story, which I won't, but that in 1907, Finnish immigrant miners struck on the Iron Range, and the companies who were owned by Carnegie Steel, and in fact, this is a Carnegie library, and we want to thank the iron miners and steel workers and coal miners who made Andrew Carnegie rich, a little bit of which he then gave away. But in 1907, there was a strike. The strike was broken. All of the Finnish miners were fired. They were replaced by recruiting workers from Southern, Central, and Eastern Europe, Herzegovinans, Croatians, Serbians, And some of the Finns stuck around eking out a living because they couldn't get a job back in the mines. And they spread the gospel of unionism to that next group of immigrants who had come in. So it's great to hear that somebody from your store is out there organizing somebody else. And then I also, to frame the next question, want to say here we are in the East Side Freedom Library. If you put union organizing in our catalog, I suspect 50 titles at least would come up. So I'm going to ask these folks, how did they organize? And I suspect not one of them will say, well, I came to the East Side Freedom Library and I read every book about organizing that I could find. And somehow they didn't need to read those books to figure out how to do it. And so Gracie, would you start, please? How did you organize?
In the union campaign specifically?
I don't know. Does it make sense to talk about the union campaign separately from other things?
That's a good question. I'm going to start with, I think, me organizing, and then I think us organizing. For me, a lot of it was anger and just being driven by that frustration and anger and being vocal and fed up and having those conversations on the floor and having conversations about frustrations with managers on the floor. We would run the drive-through, with 2 people, 3 people. Ethan also remembers this. And, be serving